We just completed our first ever Grow 365 challenge, and I think that calls for some fireworks. Guten Yardening, everybody! We are so excited to start with day one of our brand new Grow 365 challenge here, January 1st of 2022. In this video, we're going to focus on ways in which we became more self-sufficient in 2021 in the hopes that we can share some of our successes and also some of the areas that we're working on so that maybe you can set your own goal of moving toward self-sufficiency as we've done. You know, with the small piece of land that we have here at Guten Yardening, it's not exactly an easy task to say, hey, let's get out there and grow all of our own fresh organic fruits and vegetables. Instead, it's more of an incremental approach, one that we've been building up to over the last half a dozen years, where we've taken our land and transformed it from a 3x3 simple raised garden plot into something that takes up the entire surrounding of our property. I said incremental, meaning that we had to plan each new step along the way to get to a point where I can successfully say that we have grown our own food 365 days a year, and very little of the food, the fresh produce anyway, that we've needed have we had to get from anywhere else. That, for us, is a remarkable accomplishment, one that we are very excited about. And I definitely want to celebrate some of those successes today as we talk about how we've moved towards self-sufficiency, but I also want to talk about a couple of the areas that we want to change or improve to go farther along that way as we set our goal for complete self-sufficiency from any grocery store at all. Personally, I think it can be a bit daunting or overwhelming to consider growing all of your own fresh produce, especially if you don't have multiple acres of land to do that on. And so that's where the incremental approach that we've taken and what we want to encourage you to do today is coming from. And what we'd like for you to do, and I'm going to say this again at the end of the video, but we'd love for you down in the comments below to leave one of your goals or your own personal challenge or pledge of moving towards self-sufficiency that you have for 2022. We want to know what you plan to do to improve your own production or to increase or to start producing your own vegetables. Remember, it doesn't have to be a massive step. It could be something as simple as I want to grow a vegetable for the very first time. That's a step in the right direction. Or it could be something like, I want to try a new variety. I want to grow more of X, Y, or Z. We just want to know, what is your goal? Where are you going to challenge yourselves like we're trying to challenge ourselves with a brand new Grow 365 challenge? A big part of the move towards self-sufficiency is an understanding of where your money goes. And I want to say that 2021 was a major shift for us, one that's been years in the coming, where we looked at our receipts, we looked at the produce, the different things that we were buying at the store, and we looked to see what we could replace. You know, that's one of the things that's very difficult to do, in my opinion. If you don't know where your money's going, if you don't have a clear picture of where your money's going in terms of the outflow, it's hard to know what you can do to improve or to reduce that dependency on the store or that dependency on other people. Now, this idea of tracking the outflow of money when it comes to expenditures with groceries, I think is probably pretty intuitive, but I also think it's something that a lot of us don't really do. I mean, it's so easy to go to the store and find a few vegetables here and there, regardless of the quality of them, and just bring those home. It may seem at first as though we take the path of least resistance along this line. Of course, that doesn't take into account the quality of the product that you're bringing in, the quality of that food, the nutritional value of that food. It also doesn't take into account how it was produced in the first place. And as I mentioned in a recent episode of our Why We Garden series, one of the things we want to do is to have that control over production, to have that control over the quality of our food. That's so important. And one of the other things we've found as we've gotten better at or more practiced at gardening is that we've been able to reduce some of our costs. And so if you're looking at this from an ease or an ease of cost expenditure type of thing, when you become more efficient at gardening, the more experience you have, the more you're able to make that cost effective way of growing your own food. And there is nothing that can replace the idea of having fresh organic food right on your plate. There's nothing quite as nutritional. In one of our other Why We Garden videos where we were talking about our children being a big influence on why we garden, I referenced a study that showed that people who garden increase the amount of healthy vegetables that they're adding to their diet as well. So that's an important piece. If you're growing your own food, you're likely also creating a better diet for yourself because you're more likely to want to eat the food that you're growing outdoors. So when I talk about our move towards self-sufficiency in 2021, the primary focus for me anyway is this idea that we know where our money is going. We have an idea of what then we can replace. I'm able to take a look at the receipt and say, oh, I no longer need to buy these things that I'm spending money on. I can replace some of these unhealthy things that I would have purchased with organic fruits and vegetables. And now what I'm able to do is see the cost basis for what I'm doing decrease overall. Now, when it comes to our goal of being self-sufficient, there were quite a few vegetables where we reached that goal. And these are vegetables that we really love. And so we made sure to grow plenty of them. And that's another piece of moving towards self-sufficiency. You pick those vegetables that you actually want to eat or that you would normally be buying. And so we have plenty of potatoes and sweet potatoes, eggplant, which is absolutely fantastic, by the way, if you've never grown it, tomatoes, our kale, our spinach, and more. We have quite a few vegetables where we reach that end goal of having enough to last us the entire year, or at least the entire winter here in Zone 5, Wisconsin. And we have them in storage now, so we don't have to worry about purchasing more. But there are also definitely areas where we have not reached that level of self-sufficiency that we want. And some of that comes from mistakes we made. Some of that comes from a lack of realization of how much we need to plant of a specific fruit or vegetable in order to have enough for us to have the entire year long. And so that's a piece of learning that we're still doing. And that's kind of the fun part of moving towards self-sufficiency as well. Making some of those mistakes, but also coming to realizations of how to improve or to fix those issues so that you can change the outcome next year. I'll give you a couple of examples. We love onions. We just recently, had to buy onions for the first time in a very, very long time. But the reason we had to buy them is this year we made a mistake. We started our onions from sets and they did not perform well for us. Next year, we're going to grow from starts, and therefore we should hopefully get what we got 2 years ago, which was a much bigger bulb, a much bigger set of onions coming out. That caused a problem for us this year. We ran out of onions way too fast. Another example is corn. Corn has been, to put it mildly, a challenge for us, and we don't necessarily have to buy corn, but I love corn. And so what we've decided to do next year, because the past 2 years our corn crop has been a pretty big failure in many ways in terms of actual corn on the cob. So what we're going to do next season is we're going to rent another plot and we're going to dedicate it to corn so that we can focus on fertilizing and we can focus on making sure that the corn that we want to grow there is going to produce in such a way that we not only have enough to pick fresh, but that we can cut it off and freeze later on. Garlic's another area where we need to make some improvements. You know, we only grew garlic for the first time this past season, and when it came up, it was magnificent. It was delicious. It was better than anything I've ever purchased at the store, but we only had about a half a dozen bunches of garlic because we didn't know what it was going to do. And so recently we purchased a bunch of garlic that we planted outdoors in a much bigger space. And our goal here is to have way more garlic coming into this upcoming season. That's another thing that we've eaten a little bit of because we had some extra garlic cloves. One of the few things that we've actually had to eat that was store-bought, some organic garlic. And another valuable lesson that we learned in this past season in terms of moving towards self-sufficiency comes to us via our carrots. One of the things we've done the last 2 seasons is planted a wide variety of carrots, lots of different colors. And what we found is that some of them really don't produce well for us. And so we're taking time, we're taking space, and we're allocating it to vegetables that are not necessarily going to be productive. Whereas we have other varieties of carrots that we've had much more success with. So what are we learning? We're going to pick the most productive varieties. Of course, we want the ones that are tasty as well, but we want to pick those most productive varieties that can give us the greatest yield, just like our Magic Molly purple potatoes earlier this year. A fantastic yield. If we want to be self-sufficient in these vegetables, we're going to try our best to plant the ones that are going to give us the best performance so we have the most food as a result. The point out of all of this is that you can also move in this direction of self-sufficiency even if it means a single vegetable variety. Regardless of what this means, there's the possibility of moving in this direction. And I think, and I can only speak to this from a personal point of view here, but I think once you get started heading in that direction, you'll find that it is very difficult to stop. Once you start producing your own food, once you start seeing that outcome, you're not going to want to go anywhere else. So we're inviting you not only to take the challenge that we're doing right now, the Grow 365 challenge. We would love to have other people take that challenge and post videos about that as well. We'd absolutely love to see that. But beyond that, we'd love to challenge you to set a goal, just like we've done. This past year, we decided that we wanted to grow our own food 365 days a year. This year, we've decided to fix, our goal is to fix some of those areas of weakness for us when it comes to where we are deficient in terms of production. That's our goal this year. That's one of our goals, I'll say. So leave a comment down below and let us know what your goal is. How are you going to move toward self-sufficiency this year? We would love to hear from you. We'd love to get some inspiration from you. Our goal here at Guten Yardening, as you know, is to share what we do, so we'd love to have you join us on this journey of moving towards self-sufficiency in an even bigger way in 2022. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.